One of the biggest areas of concern for people going into Fallout 76 and speculating about it was PvP. At E3, even though they actually showed us some physical gameplay of people PvPing, they never really gave us too much context as to how that would play out. We get some of the minor details, but with any online survival game, a huge question is griefing and how you're going to prevent that. To which Bethesda largely responded at the time, we're working on it and tuning things in. Well, just yesterday at Quakecon, we actually got a pretty good look as to how they're going to be addressing PvP, how many of the different systems will be handled, and how they're going to handle griefing specifically. I personally found this new information to actually get me quite excited for the PvP aspect of Fallout 76. So with that, I'm going to go over all the new things pertaining to PvP we found out from Quakecon. So PvP will always be on for Fallout 76. At any point, one player can shoot another player and do damage, pretty much. But if you're just attacking somebody else and they at no point shoot you back, you're only going to do minimal damage. You can still get them to the point of killing them entirely, but it's almost like you're going to have a debuff applied to you when attacking players that don't attack you back. The way Todd Howard kind of explained it himself is slapping somebody in a bar, indicating to them that you want to fight, but not doing enough damage that you have some major upper hand. So let's say those two players do engage into combat, then you're going to get a cap reward for killing the other player based on their present level. They didn't really delve too deeply into how this will be calculated, but that if you actually take on somebody who's considerably higher level than you, the benefit will be you'll get a considerable amount of caps for your character. But let's say you do that, you go up against someone that's level 100 while you're only level 20 and lose. Well, then you're going to enter into this revenge mode. We've kind of seen this in some of the gameplay already, although there wasn't a ton of context as to how it was working, but more or less after getting to combat with another player, you do lose and die. You can select to take revenge on them, and what that's going to do is actually double the cap reward. As an aside, some questions I still have about revenge are like, if I continue to enter into combat and lose over and over again, will I eventually lose that revenge reward? Will it have been like, well, it didn't work out? Maybe after one death you can no longer get those double caps. But either way, in normal PvP combat, upon death you're actually going to drop all of the junk you do have. The other player that did kill you will also get caps based on your level, but it doesn't seem like, at least for normal deaths, that will actually be deducted from your caps. You will, on the other hand though, lose all of the junk you did have in your inventory, but will otherwise keep all your other items. Let's say you don't want to carry all of your junk around all the time, there's going to be stashes that you can store some of your junk in, so you could go then PvP or get into combat with NPCs, and even if you die, you won't lose it all. And to be clear, in case some of you guys forgot, junk in the Fallout franchise, starting with Fallout 4, was largely used for different crafting materials, probably making some settlement objects, some of the weapon modifications, or even weapons themselves. Another interesting thing is when you die, you actually can pick your spawn point. So the way this is going to work is you have to have unlocked that location, probably like discovering a location in any of the older Fallout games. You technically can respawn at any location you discovered, but only ones that are near you will be free. Any of the farther locations, like something on the other side of the map, you can choose to respawn at, but it will have a caps cost associated with it. In addition though, Vault 76 will always be a free respawn location. But let's scroll back a little bit. Let's say you're actually shooting at somebody else and they don't begin to fight back. They want nothing to do with you. They're just doing a quest and want to continue doing that. You will continue to be able to do damage to them, and eventually you can kill them to the point where they have to respawn and go through that process. But if you end up killing a player that at no point fought back against you, you're actually going to enter into a wanted state. So in that sense, killing that enemy player will give you no reward. You're not going to get a caps reward nor an experience reward. On the map, you're going to appear with a big red star to all other players, so everyone in the game can see your relative location, even if you sneak. By default in Fallout 76, you will always appear on the map, but if you sneak, you'll stop appearing on the map. But in this wanted murderer state, you're going to be seen by everyone even while sneaking. Again, it's your relative area, so not a precise location. But in addition, you can't see any other players on the map, even if they're running full force towards you and not sneaking. And then finally, you're going to have a bounty placed on your head because you are considered now by the game a wanted murderer. The bounty will be some amount of caps. They didn't really say how they're going to determine how much, but the amount of caps that it is going to come out of your own inventory. It'll be your caps, not just some caps generated by the game. And also, based on how they described it, it seems like even if you kill other attackers that are, well, now trying to get you and claim your bounty, you're not going to get any rewards, no experience, and no caps along the way. Again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but the way they worded it in the video, it definitely seems like that's going to be the case. So let's say somebody kills you and you honestly just don't want to deal with them anymore. Well, there's also going to be an ignore feature. What this ignore feature is going to do is make it so that other player can't actually see you on the map. But on the flip side, if they happen to just stumble upon you, they'll still be able to see you in the game in the first person. Just when they open up their map, you're no longer going to appear there. You can also enter into a pacifist mode. So the way this is going to work is you'll be able to shoot, but you won't actually damage other players first off. So in the bounty system, if at any point the enemy player shoots back at you, no bounty will be placed on your head and you won't be a wanted murderer. A way to abuse that would be to jump in front of another player as they're shooting and then to shoot back at them, so the game would think that you actually entered into traditional PvP combat, even though that's not the case. Well, it's the point of this pacifist mode. You're not going to actually damage players in case they jump in front of you, or you're just playing with your team of friends and maybe you're just really bad at aiming. Something they weren't super clear on with this is, I assume if another player begins to attack you, you'll be able to damage them then, but not vice versa. If you attack them first, you're never going to do damage to them. They have to attack you first, seemingly. Again, that may be incorrect. They didn't really clarify too clearly on that one. But then finally, we actually do have the damage curves, and this by far was the most interesting to me. So the question was asked, could somebody that's low level take on somebody that was high level in Fallout 76? The way they described this was that there'd be two power curves in the game. One power curve is going to apply to monsters and PvE, so attacking any of the various NPCs or technically plants in the game, and that's going to have its own damage curve. Weapons will do a certain amount of damage to NPCs, and it'll probably be higher than the PvP curve. So the PvP damage curve is going to be normalized, meaning that even some of the worst items in the game will do some amount of damage, and as it would seem, based on how a curve works, conversely, the highest damage weapons in the game won't do tons of damage to even low-level players. If you're a student, think of a curve in a class, like a true curve. People at the higher end of the spectrum are going to be curved down, while people at the lower end of the spectrum are going to be curved up. It's going to work the same way for weapons in Fallout 76 when you enter into PvP, not when you enter into PvE. They also explain that this is going to work for armors in addition to weapons. They'll kind of go hand in hand, I assume. One of the examples they gave in this is, let's say you're a lower level player and you're using a knife, and you get the jump on a higher level player that's, let's say, in power armor with a minigun. It'll still be difficult for you to kill that player, but you're going to have a chance. It's not like you're going to do literally no damage to them because they're such a higher level than you. I personally wasn't a huge fan of the system. I feel like we need more context on it. We need a better explanation and some actual visual examples, because I would like to actually know how much damage you do. Like, is it really, do you have a chance? Because I wouldn't want some players coming right out of the vault to be able to kill me if I've been playing the game for 30 hours and have some of the best equipment in the game. I have to imagine that wouldn't be the case, but again, I'm kind of reserving judgment on this one in particular until we see some actual examples of gameplay. And then lastly, VATS. VATS is obviously in Fallout 76, if you haven't heard. It's not going to pause time anymore or slow time as it did in Fallout 4, but you still can target players. One difference though, in Fallout 76, the ability to target individual body parts is going to be blocked by a perk. So you have to have that perk, otherwise all you can do is target the player as a whole. And they mentioned in the interview how it was immensely useful for finding enemy players, especially since Fallout 76 has so much more kind of brush and different trees around. And I guess somewhat relevant to PvP, proximity voice chat will be a thing in this game. You will of course have the option to mute and even ignore players, but you will be able to hear people talking around you, which I know is a feature that a lot of people felt one way or the other. I personally like it. I think it'll make it, when you're on a good server, a lot more immersive and interesting to interact with others that way. So personally, I feel like for me at least, this cleared up a lot about PvP and got me quite a bit excited for it. I was definitely one of the doubters of Bethesda when they were saying, we'll figure out PvP, don't look at other games because our game's going to be different. But hearing about that wanted murderer system and the bounties that go along with it, I think that's an amazing system, and I think it's actually going to be pretty effective. I'm sure there'll still be griefing and people will find workarounds, but hopefully Bethesda will do a good job at actually patching that and continue to find creative ways to kind of control PvP in Fallout 76. Another thing they said during this panel was that Fallout 76 may look like a totally different game even 1 to 2 years after its release, because they're going to plan on continuing to update it, implement new features, change things. So I have to imagine some of the items in the game will go through buffs, nerfs as time does progress. One thing that actually caught my eye was, and I don't know if it was meant to be taken literally, but somebody did mention how they one-shotted somebody with a sniper from far away. So maybe that person was extremely high level and they had a super upgraded sniper and the enemy was super low level with no armor. Well, that was a question I kind of had going into this game. Could I realistically one-shot somebody? Because I could see how that could create frustration, even though I think I would personally kind of like it. Either way, hopefully that cleared up a lot of the new stuff we did find out about Fallout 76 from this year's Quakecon. I'm pretty excited for the game. I definitely feel like it was a net positive as my overall feelings about the game go. I wish the interviewer in particular had asked some harder hitter questions, but what they showed, the PvP details as well as the actual perk card system, looks really cool. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, and this was definitely not when they were going to address it. And this very likely is the last time we actually see Fallout 76 on stage, because there's really no other events in between now and its beta release date. Yeah, that's pretty much it. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.